Welcome to the Victoria Rumble Room. My name is John Juricic. This is an online show that talks about all kinds of issues locally, provincially, federally, all over the world. We talk about these things. I'd like to introduce my guests. As you can tell, somebody's missing. Robin Adair is on holiday. And so Ryan Painter has graciously accepted co-host responsibilities. Ryan is a podcaster, famous podcaster, communication consultant. Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good morning, John. It is great to be here with you. I bear the weight of co-host with immense humility. I'm incredibly honored. Filling the boots of Robin Adair is going to be incredibly challenging, but I will do my utmost.
Oh, outstanding. I think you've already done it, already made him happy. And of course, old friend of mine, colleague of my business associate, Mark McDonald from Up Island. And in the case, if you're listening from somewhere where you don't know where the hell an island is, it's Upper Vancouver Island. Mark is a political pundit. He is an author, a writer for the Business Examiner, knows lots about politics. So we got ourselves a little recipe here for a rumble, don't we?
Let's fight. Great to be with you again. Yeah.
Excellent. Fabulous. Okay, guys. We've got elections coming out of our yin yang. All right. So let's focus on one of them, that being the BC provincial election. I'm going to start by being very provocative and see how you react. So, I don't think the NDP won. I thought the Conservatives lost. And I think if they had actually taken care of the transition from the United, that in fact they would be in power right now. I think if those sort of entrails of disaffected United voters had somehow been brought under the tent, they would be in power right now. And I'd like to hear your opinions on that.
Well, I mean, I think I'm not going to disagree with you. However, I don't think that I think an NDP government does not excite me. I don't think British Columbians can afford it, but I don't think the BC Conservatives were ready to form government. If you put John Rustad in a room in our coffee shop, which one is John, right? And I don't think he has the team to rule. So somebody asked me before the election, what do you think? What's your call? And I said, the NDP will win very, very slimly, which they did. And I think that is a best case scenario for BC. Eby, to me, Eby's a radical. He's an ideologue, but with that slim majority, he can't really show his true colors. So I think it's the best case scenario. The BC Conservatives can learn their way through the legislature and get ready to form government.
Well, I'm to probably the surprise of absolutely nobody. I'm going to take a radical departure from
No.
from your positioning on here, John. I'm going to actually just start in reverse. I'm going to respond to something that Mark said about Eby, maybe taking it on the chin a little bit and realizing that he's been hobbled from the most recent election. I don't think Eby's learned anything. I mean, if you look at the fact that he's
I agree with you.
The municipal affairs and engagement role right into the premier's office, which is something that I find absolutely shocking. I mean, look, the premiers typically do hold some kind of intergovernmental affairs and relations within their office, but the fact that he has a municipal affairs minister and has removed all consultation power from that minister and brought it into his office, to me shows a premier that has learned absolutely nothing from this election. And so that I just want to put out there as a bit of an interesting point. And then to John, I do not think you can call this a loss for the Conservatives. I've heard this before. I've heard this in a few places where I've had conversations where folks have said, oh, well, the Conservatives had a real chance to come and take power. Of course, this is what elections are. Elections are a contest of ideas and they're a contest of parties. And BC has often been a two-party province where you have a consolidated left against a consolidated center-right or whatever. I think the fact that you had a party in 18 months go from one MLA to 44, I don't know what other province where that has happened in Canadian history.
But Ryan,
I think that is in and of itself a win, John.
the construct of what happened here in BC doesn't exist anywhere else. Ostensibly, that right-wing vote consolidated. It could have consolidated out of under Mickey Mouse for all I care. Like it came together, but there were folks that are still disenchanted, and I'm hoping that so that sort of doesn't form a little cancer within this conservative party for years to come here. I'm with Mark. I don't think NDP policy is good for BC community and BC government,
We agree.
especially
We
the
probably have
economy.
three-way agreement on that.
Right? I just, I'm hoping there was some lessons learned from the way the handoff was handled in September to consolidate that vote. And then I'm fascinated by, okay, so there's a one vote majority. Well, how do you take down that? Like they say, well, how long will that be? How does that work? If it's what would have to happen for the government to fall? I don't get that part.
Well, they need to get Joe Clark involved so he can't count the votes.
That's what we call a deep cut, Mark. I don't know. So I just want to say, like, the Western Standard interviewed me a couple days ago about this issue with the speaker, and they said, well, the NDP have a majority, and I said, no, they don't. They don't have a majority. As soon as they give Raj Chauhan the speaker position, they've lost their majority. Now, is it practically a majority? It is, in a sense, when the speaker votes to move legislation forward. But in the Canadian, well, in the parliamentary system itself, but certainly in Canada, it is virtually unheard of in a tie vote to have a speaker move something to royal assent. It is just not something that happens. And that in and of itself, in my estimation, creates a bit of a constitutional conundrum, because the speaker is supposed to be impartial. The speaker is supposed to be the presiding officer of that meeting. Their job is to referee, not to pick a side. And essentially, by voting to move the government's legislation to royal assent, you are picking a side. That isn't just moving business forward. So to your point about how do we actually go to an election, I think, and I know for a fact, that there are people on the government side who are very unhappy. They're very unhappy with how this election rolled out. They're very unhappy that they got overlooked in terms of cabinet positions, despite the fact that some of them got nice little top-ups. Everyone got a top-up. It's the Oprah Winfrey of top-ups.
I really hope that the restaurant folks working down there got a job doing something, because that's what it feels like.
I think if the Conservatives are smart, they'll really hone in on some kitchen sink issues, and they'll keep pounding away on the other side and force those polling numbers down. At that point, who knows what happens? BC is the Wild West of politics, and you can never predict anything here.
Yeah.
Well, Mark and I live on an island that, as all three of us do, for that matter, which houses very much Green Party support. There's a leader of that party that's not a member of MLA. What impact does the Green Party have on all of these discussions?
Well, unfortunately, these are the best positions for them ever. You know, if you look at federally with Singh, the NDP has never had it so good, where they can prop up the government and get what they want, and they can take shots when they want at the things they say they disagree with. So the Green Party's in the same position here. Their voice is, numerically speaking, is irrelevant, but in terms of power and maintaining the government, it is a powerful voice. So I don't know, they can have their cake and eat it too. I don't like their policies. They disguise themselves as fiscal conservatives, but every policy they have is a job killer, as particularly concerning anything to do with resources. So
yeah,
Mark is absolutely right. I agree with him 100%. I think what these two MLAs have to watch out for, though, they can't rush to an election right away, because they didn't win by much. I mean, between those two seats, I think the vote difference was 400 or 500 votes. If you put the vote difference together between the Sea to Sky Country riding and the Saanich North Islands riding, I mean, that's not a lot. And if they run to an election, you can be darn sure that both parties will be pouring resources into those seats to win them. The Green Party doesn't have a lot of resources, period, because they just don't. They're a very small activist-based party that, you know, their support distribution is not very good, other than a few centralized, concentrated ridings. So they shouldn't be in a rush to go to elections. So yes, they can have their cake and eat it too, but they also have to be very careful because they could end up losing the whole thing.
Plus, their policies, which were profound 10 years ago, and very much sort of a very much a representative of a large viewpoint of people, have not been adopted by the major parties. And
Well,
so, hey,
yesterday I was talking to a federal politician and about, so let's say the Green save the environment at all costs results in a glorious tourism industry. We were just in Maui, and Maui is the perfect place to grow pineapples, right? They don't have a pineapple industry, labor and other different costs and stuff. But we saw a bumper sticker, and it said, "Welcome to Hawaii. Now leave." So the residents are getting sick and tired of the fact that they can't enjoy the beaches and the resorts and the restaurants. They don't have the jobs to do it. So a friend of mine used to say, we need to have more for British Columbian kids than a promise of serving coffee to kayakers, because we won't be able to enjoy the great facilities that we have out here. And that's what's the result of a green economy. If we don't have resource extraction at some point that we can sell to other people, other countries, what are we doing, right? So we're going to have people that are, oh, what do you have to look forward to live on the island? Oh, I can work in a restaurant. Nothing the matter with those jobs, but you're not buying houses and cars with it.
No.
You can't have an economy based on hopes and dreams. You can't.
Right.
You need to have a practical reality of what Canada has. We are heroes of wood and drawers of water. That is what Canada has always been, and it is what we will always be. And we are blessed to be in that position and situation. There's a small number of people who have been impacted by international organizations and activists who agitate to move decisions away from making people more comfortable, more wealthier, making things better. And shock, all of those people live in urban ridings. They don't, or urban communities. Right. They don't live in the north. They don't live in rural communities. They've probably never even been there, right? So it's you're absolutely spot on, Mark. People they really don't get it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the urban thing. So what the NDP has discovered, which maybe the other side knew for a while, is all you need to do is win Greater Vancouver, right? And everything else doesn't matter. So when even Americans are ignorant of their own system, but the Electoral College down there is a brilliant piece of legislation. It guarantees that New York and California don't elect the president every year. Every state has a say. And because we don't have that, we're on the British system that the Americans technically threw the tea into the Boston Harbor to get rid of the British government. We have that system. So our David Eby, regardless of a one-seat majority, is a dictator if he wants to be. And he wants to be. And we have one in Ottawa too. And we can't get them out until the next election. And I can't stand that. The one thing I do like, in fact, if it's such a slim majority, is Eby, if he wants to pass anything, is going to have to make deals. And I like that about the U.S. system. You have to make deals to get stuff going.
All right.
I thought you were going to start talking about term limits, Mark, and I was like, ooh, we're getting to an interesting place now.
I love term limits. Absolutely. 8 years.
So, Mark, you prompted me with your comments, thinking about resources. That obviously leads to us sort of starting to lean into like a federal look, and I'd love to talk about the waste of money that Eby undertook by naming everyone and the janitors into his cabinet, but really you led us into now a federal conversation. How is this election impacting the federal scene? How is this election going to impact the federal decision making around resource extraction, resource transportation, especially with Alberta chirping up and starting to sort of isolate themselves or become independent from the country?
Well, actually, yesterday we were discussing again, why did Pierre Poilievre not inject himself into the BC election? And the answer was, and this person is in the know, that they didn't want to be perceived to be linked with some of the untried, tested people here. And also, what about a failure of a BC Conservative government in BC? That would portend terribly for a future Conservative government in Ottawa. So I didn't really understand it. I thought that brought some clarity to me, because the NDP is still, they're going to be their main weapon, right? They're going to talk about, look at what Singh does. He's just hanging in there for his pension. Look, they've propped up Trudeau. So they wanted to keep that in their arsenal. And anyway, I think the NDP is, well, the record speaks for itself. They're anti-jobs, and it's hurting people. It's really hurting people, their policies.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I mean, the provincial side of things was interesting because after the election, now, I mean, I think I saw Poilievre and Rustad just, I think, in the last few days share a tweet of themselves together, kind of shaking hands, and I was like, okay, that's post-election. That's interesting because now things have kind of settled, and there was polling is I mean, we could go down the avenue of polling. I don't know if we want to, but it's a mugs game, really. But I mean, you do look at the polling and you do see the Liberals and the Conservatives consistently doing worse and worse in BC, and are the NDP and the Liberals and the Conservatives just reaching highs that I think we've never seen a single party take in BC. I mean, there's a lot of seats up for grabs, including here on the island. I mean, there are nomination contests here on the island that are hotly contested right now. And so
listen, guys, why doesn't Trudeau resign? What?
Because he's Trudeau. Like
That's
he's insufferably arrogant.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. He doesn't want to lose. I mean, look,
Yeah.
Trudeau has taken down 3 previous Conservative leaders. Right? He took down Stephen Harper, he took down Andrew Scheer, and he took down Aaron O'Toole. He wants to take down Pierre Poilievre, right? That's what I think it is. I think it's his ego, and I think he wants to take him down. And he is going to march the Liberal Party into the worst, one of the worst, if not the worst, outcome that they've ever had. I mean, I thought it couldn't get any worse since Ignatieff's dismal 43, 44 seat win back in 2011. But they may actually see a new floor.
Well, you could have Kim Campbell, two seats. But if I could just speak to the polling issue, the politicization of polling is the problem. Because when I want to know what's going on out there in polling wise, I have friends in the NDP. Their polling is very accurate. And if you watch the Trump campaign, I think about a month to go, he knew he was going to win. You could see his countenance change. So even back to when Christy Clark won, like Mike McDonald knew within it was 0.2% or something what the seats were going to be. So there is a way to get accurate polling. The problem is the politicization of it. So Elon Musk talked about why did that was it Iowa? Was they were projecting a 3% win for Harris?
Yeah.
And it was a 15% loss.
Yeah.
And he explained what happens is if it's about a 5 to 6% difference, then people panic and head to the polls. But if it's that much of a gap, they don't, because I don't have a chance anyway. So that's what they do, right? But I'm telling you, I don't know what the NDP does, but you can tell their policies and who's winning and all those things by the way they act, because their polling is really accurate.
Yeah,
polling. How they do it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I'm not an expert on polling by any stretch. I think I'm probably like most people. I watch the polls and I see what's happening and what they're doing. And do polls, I mean, here's a question. Do polls impact how you vote? Because they've never impacted how I voted. I've always known how I was going to vote leading into an election. Did you guys have like polls ever impacted how you voted in any kind of election?
No, but a lot of people do. I'm amazed.
Sure, I'm not denying that, for sure.
Yeah, people come to the last couple of days before election. Hey, Mark, who should I vote for? Like, have you not thought about that for the last 3 months, 6 months? Right? They have no idea. It's like they take a dart out there. Oh, that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I know, it's incredible.
It's happened to me too. It's happened to me too. When I was a school trustee and chair of the board here, in 2022, I had people literally asking me what 9 should they vote for. Like, give me their 9. Like, they wanted me to send them a list of 9 names, and that's who they were going to take into the voting booth and vote for.
Unbelievable.
And I just kind of like, now, did I do it? I think what I did is I told folks this is who I will be voting for, and this is why.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
yeah.
think that's what, but I don't feel comfortable telling people who to vote for, and I
So,
never would,
so,
because that's just giving away your franchise. It just feels weird.
so
Yeah,
what I do is I give them a list because I think, okay, well, if 50 people ask me, I'm making 50 votes.
yeah. I think polling impacts
Mm,
energy. I
Mm,
yeah,
think it impacts
great point.
enthusiasm.
yeah,
Mm,
You put out that Iowa will go to Harris. I have to think a few Republicans said, maybe I'll vote.
mm,
mm, mm,
I don't know how many, but if it were to stay, well, I was going to go 15 points. The folks, like obviously the three of us are embedded deep into politics and love it and talk about and think about it.
mhm,
mm,
I don't know folks who are not. And why would I? Because I hang out with people of like mind, obviously.
mhm.
So
mm.
what percentage, really, people ask a couple days beforehand?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Like, what
oh yeah.
percentage of that population do you think is doing that? The ones that don't vote, like the 40%?
I think it's the majority. I really do. I
Yeah.
think the majority of people, and I don't want to cast shade on anybody because lives get busy, and I know that sounds trite, but it's just true. I mean, everyone is busy. We all, like us three, are probably slamming busy anyways. Right now, our email boxes are filling up as we speak, I'm sure. But I think people just they don't have time, and I understand, and that might sound lazy, but I'm sympathetic to that. I'm sympathetic to folks in dual income families and households who are $200 away from not being able to pay their bills, and they're just like, you know what, voting is just not on my mind right now. Like, I might be out of a job, I might lose my
Mhm.
house, like I can't get my kids childcare. Like, voting might not be the thing that's a high priority for them.
So when I ran in 2015, my political mentor said, listen to this one. 6% of Canadians pay attention to politics on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I said, come on. She says 6%. And so they end up going to the ballot box on, like, for example, with Trudeau and his sunny ways. Oh, I remember the name Trudeau. I'll vote for him. Oh, I like his socks. Oh, he's handsome, I think. And they vote.
I've
Um,
heard people who say that about him and
for
voted
sure.
Listen,
for him because
my
of
wife
that.
still talks about how handsome Trudeau is.
Oh dear.
God bless her.
Hey,
Yeah.
maybe I should run.
You should,
Hey,
but
Oh,
you need
that's
more hair, John. You need more
there's
hair, John. I'm not a
there's
fan.
still a,
I
You got to
know.
start somewhere.
there's still a chance for all of us then, eh?
There is. No, I think that's true, Mike, and I think, or Mark, sorry, and I think you said Mike McDonald, and I was thinking about
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah.
Um, and I mean, how do we get beyond that? I mean, I've heard folks talk about, like, people need to be informed to vote or something like that, and I'm sure we've both heard this, like, oh, there needs to be a test to make you vote, and I just, like, I really whinge at that stuff, because voting is a right that by dint of citizenship we can't then take it away, because I think that is a real deep concern.
So here's I totally agree. One of the things I think the problem is politics has become a taboo subject, right?
Mm,
When I started out in business and sales, they said, don't talk about religion or politics. Well, I talked about both on the job to great success,
yeah.
because especially with politics, like most of us as business people think the same way, right?
Yep. Yep.
So these conversations don't take place around the kitchen table. And so in the States, what they're going to do is Trump is going to he's going to teach patriotism.
Mm,
This is what the Constitution is,
mm,
because all our people are not, like they say, oh, doesn't you hear these comments? There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. It's just the man, it's the system. And they don't realize how our system works, that you can make change if you get involved. But
yeah.
that's got to start in the elementary schools.
Mm.
Well, and not necessarily there, because then it's going to be the BCTF educating your kids. But
Well,
you need to have those conversations, right?
They
yeah.
already are.
Yeah,
Um, I,
yeah, they
I,
are. For sure
we're
they
going
are.
to get to that Trump stuff because all of that teaching in schools of patriotism,
Yeah.
I'm all against that. So
Are
we
you?
can get it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because it's all subjective. All three of us here will have a different interpretation of what patriotism is. Okay. So how are you going to teach that to anyone? It'll always be a biased opinion as
Well,
to what that person's opinion of that is.
the, the
Okay.
one thing I would say about that, John, is it's not like Republican patriotism. It's the fact that they need to study and understand the Constitution, why it was there. It's a brilliant piece of legislation. And because of that, you have
I
these,
do support historical study. I do
okay,
support that.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Okay, I'm not talking about, like not even politicizing it, but it's like Americans have gone down this road of apologizing for who they are and say, no, this is the country that threw the tea in the harbor, right? We are free to make, and they go through that. So people are saying, oh, let's get rid of the Supreme Court. Well, don't you understand? They don't understand what that means to the liberty of everybody, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's general ignorance, and then they go, and then they vote for somebody because he has nice socks. Right.
Okay,
Right?
I want to go down to the States, but I want to not leave Canada for the moment.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm still flabbergasted by the fact that Trudeau's not resigning. Where are the mechanisms? I think they happened within the last month for the party, as in Britain, to manifest change in their party. It doesn't seem like they. So this entire Liberal caucus can't do shit about getting rid of Trudeau.
No, they could if they
They
wanted
could.
They
to.
could if they wanted to. Yeah.
They could have a non-confidence vote, and they could vote against Trudeau, and he's out. They
Yeah.
won't do it, right?
Why not?
Because they're liberals.
What?
They stick together like glue. No. It's all about the power, right? But
Yeah,
all those
so
20 disaffected MPs say, you know what, I've had enough. Out.
so Mark is right, and that parliamentary practice is essentially, if you have a caucus, you select who the leader of that caucus is, and in this instance, it happens to be the leader of the party, and they could vote him out at any moment if they wanted to. And in fact, this has happened with the Conservatives who voted out Aaron O'Toole through the formal adoption of I think it was the Reform Act, but you'll have to. I don't quite recall, but it was a federal act that was brought in an attempt to allow more party control within individual political parties, because that was certainly an issue in Parliament, and I think it remains an issue to your point, John, about why Trudeau is ignoring his caucus. Well, his caucus, he's not ignoring them. His caucus are gutless. I mean, I'm sorry. There are people there who I really do I like, and I'm sure they have all the best intentions, but my gosh, you are literally sitting on the deck chairs of the Titanic, watching it sink, while you watch the captain of the Titanic make bigger holes in it. Like, do something about it. Don't just sit there and twiddle your thumbs.
So here's my worry about Conservative Party federally peaking too soon. Okay, I am not into. I vote like we've described voters. I vote for someone who has policies that are going to impact my life. If that were the Rhino Party, guess what? So there are huge frickin' problems in our society with housing, with affordability, with health, with the homeless, with medical issues, and we're not getting solutions anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so what is so appealing at this stage from the Poilievre side, the Conservative side, is that there seems to be some recognition and respect for that. Here are the solutions we're going to provide for you. And they're not just kind of crazy, a third level tax cuts if you make this amount of money. Like, it's real. Here is what's going to happen. And so then within the last, sorry, Mark, I'm just so annoyed with this. So then recently, Trudeau says, well, we're going to cut the GST. And all of a sudden for 2 months, we're going to have, could the Conservatives peak too early and be concerned about that and therefore pull back some of the policy pieces, and Trudeau do some crazy stuff like you'll get a free car if you vote for me, right? Mm-hmm. Hey,
well, I think
you're out.
Yeah, it's past that for Trudeau. I mean,
okay.
I said 10 years ago, I said they will hate this Trudeau more than they hated the old man. And it's here and it's sustained. And Poilievre is not riding a wave now. This is actually a mountain. So it's his to lose. And Conservatives have a great history of being a circular firing squad and eating their own, right? So if they can keep the team together and stop from shooting at each other and stay on message, they'll be just fine. There's nothing that Trudeau can do to turn this now, and there's not anybody, including Mark Carney, in the farm team to take his place. We talked about last time I was on about Mr. Speaker. She's not able to. She's not going to vote for her.
Yeah, and for something is medically wrong with Chrystia Freeland, and or something, and I'm sad about that. I wish there would be transparency. I have XYZ, and therefore that's why I'm reacting this way. But
Is she really? Is there really something
well,
medically wrong with her?
there have been multiple evidence on video of just
Oh,
very odd physical behavior,
okay. I
and
didn't. I wasn't aware of that.
and to the point where a non-doctor like me could, well, something's wrong here. Something's not
Mm,
working. So
mm,
yeah, that would not be an option.
Okay.
Carney be worse than Trudeau.
Hmm.
There are no one on the bench,
No.
but Trudeau's Trudeau, and he's got great socks. Like
Yeah.
I've been hearing about the concern about the Conservatives peaking too early for, I don't know, 2 years, like, or maybe it just feels like it's been that long. And the concerns had weight back before Trudeau had tried to do multiple things to right the ship, whether it was cabinet shuffles, whether it was moving people out, whether it was promising this, that, and the other thing, and the housing accelerator and all these other things. Nothing has worked. And nothing has worked because people don't want Trudeau.
No.
And so here's the thing. They could have positively impacted this if Trudeau had left maybe 2 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Then they would have had a shot. But he has so poisoned the brand and the well now for the party that Mark is spot on. Poilievre is riding a wave this next election, or a mountain, pardon me. This next election will be his to lose, and there is no peak too early because right now, like that concern,
because
in
there's
my
no peak.
opinion, is gone. Like, it's
Yeah.
gone. The peak itself has become the plateau, if I
Mm,
can say,
I
right?
agree.
And so now it is literally just marching towards the election, and the only question we have to ask ourselves is how low will the Liberals go?
yeah, yeah.
And regarding Trudeau, Trudeau is not a smart man. He's the kind of guy that would sit in the classroom and look to the grade A student beside him and steal his notes and copy them down on his own and say, "I got an A." Like he's just taking the IMF and those and the WWE or whatever they call it and saying, "Look at those policies are mine." Like he doesn't have. He's vacuous. There's a vacancy up there. This is not Pierre. This is
Hmm.
Margaret, right,
Hmm.
running the
Hmm.
country, and it's scary because there was an article in the National Post, and it said the headline was Trump's cabinet really, really hates Trudeau. That's a problem for all of us,
Yes, it
regardless of our
is.
political stripe, right?
Mm.
Beautiful segue. Rather than comment on the American election, of which we all have our personal opinions, and to some degree, um, not entirely relevant for the show,
Mhm.
maybe not. Let's talk more about how the election down south will impact Canada. You just answered part of that, Mark. If they don't like anyone up here,
I know. So
that's how business doesn't work.
yeah, it's so that what I think we watched is the beginning of a revolution, a democratic revolution, and just as much in our country as, let's say, if Langford has a pro-development policy and downtown Victoria doesn't, downtown Victoria has to kind of come close to what Langford does if they want to have any development at all, right? So if Trump and his all-star team, and just one thing about that, you notice the four people leading the, at least on the Staying Alive videos, is Trump, Gabbard, who I love, Musk, and RFK Jr. You know what? They're all Democrats. The Democrats are leading the Republican Party down there, which I like because Reagan was a Democrat, right? So if he's successful in rejigging government, then other countries were going to have to, whether they like it or not, they're going to have to look at it and make changes. So I think that could be a long-term benefit to Canada. If they reduce the size of government down there and then Canada becomes increasingly uncompetitive, they're going to have to do something to shave down the 22% increase in federal government employees that Trudeau introduced. 22%.
I think I'm less optimistic about that piece than Mark is, because I never underestimate the ability of Canadians to just kind of accept what government does. And
Yeah.
I feel like we have such a long history in Canada of government getting bigger and not really ever getting, and even when governments say they're getting smaller, well, deficits go up, or you know uh, uh, it shocks me sometimes how apathetic we are as a people. Americans are not apathetic. Americans care so much about their politics. And they elect everybody down there. Like when they literally say they elect their dog catcher, that is true. They do that. Canadians, I mean, this is maybe going back a bit, and I don't want to come back to the Canada stuff, but I think just for comparison's sake, I think this is important because we tend to take it on the chin a lot as voters and as a society that, okay, well, government kind of does know best, and we'll just kind of, and if we get upset, we'll say something, we'll write some letters to the editor maybe, and maybe we'll come out and have a little rally or something. But for the most part, Canadians are just, I think, accepting people. I don't want to say, like droopy dog like, but we just kind of let stuff happen. And my hope, Mark, I want what you're saying to actually happen in Canada, because I would love for Canadians to, again, reference back to a previous comment, be more patriotic, be more proud of our history as a country, be more proud of the fact that folks like my grandfather came here from Denmark with literally $0 and created opportunity for himself. And, my stepfather, whose family were all Doukhobors, right? Like they came here and they created a way for themselves. Like Canada has a lot to be proud of. Anyways, back to the States. I think the impacts certainly of things like tariff barriers are going to be brutal for our businesses.
That's what I'm really worried about.
And that was probably the only reason I would have not voted for Trump. Like I guess if I was in the States, it wouldn't have mattered that much. But I think that's the reason why I was really looking like I don't want Trump to win, is because those tariff barriers that they're looking to impose are going to be so painful.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Mark?
Well, a month ago, I was in a seminar in Richmond, and the economist for the Scotiabank was speaking about the U.S. election. Because I could never understand why do Americans hate Trump so much in so many sectors, right? And basically, he talked about the impact of the tariffs and that, and he said the isolation of the states. So I went up after him and I said, why did you not say anything about Harris? And he says, this was his comment. He says, when Harris gets in, she won't be able to do anything, and it's the status quo. So all these outside nations have access to the unfettered access to the American market. Trump's going to stop that, right? Now, my point, and I've written about this numerous times, is it doesn't just have to be America first. If Canada is smart, they could make it North American first, right? But Trudeau's not going to make that happen. I think that
Poilievre the problem is you got to get along,
just like Mulroney did with Reagan, right? Yeah, you can't sit there and poke Trump in the eye and then say you're buddies. Like he's been sitting back. He knows what went wrong. Joe Rogan asked him. He told him, and he's not going to do it again. He's got 4 years. He really has 2 years, right?
Yeah, he has 2 years. Yeah. My concern are the tariffs. That's the part. The impact of the U.S. election on our society, on Canada, is our inability or lessening our competitiveness in selling them our raw resources. We could become more effective with better selling them to Asia, but I don't think that's possible with a fundamentally an NDP government in provincially in BC.
And here's the fundamental problem with the kind of the laziness of Canadians to say, well, the only customer we have to worry about is the States. Well, we need to be in Europe and we need to be in Asia and open those things up. And the Conservatives are trying to do that, right, with the Asia Pacific Gateway and that. And so when we're held captive by what happens in the United States, we ought not be, but we are, right?
Mark, I wonder when I was flying back from San Jose yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I saw a press conference with Premier Doug Ford talking about renegotiating NAFTA and excluding Mexico from it. And I was looking at this and I was wondering, is this like a preemptive move to try to, and if it is, it's really smart to try to appeal to Trump's ego a little bit and say, look, here we are, Ontario, huge manufacturing hub of automobiles and auto parts and stuff going into the States. Let's just Canada and the US get together and have a conversation here. Now, I'm not a trade expert, but that was the thing that came to my mind when I saw that. Is Trump preempting, or is Doug Ford, Premier Ford, preempting a Trump presidency in bringing this forward and talking about it?
I haven't thought about it, but for people that think that Trump is just an egomaniac, I think they've sorely missed the point. If you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, and this I think is one of the most powerful things, and especially what you're doing now, you guys with your podcast, is I call it authentic media.
Mm.
It's not what I think Trump said. It's actually Trump talking. And so Trump was not combative because he's having a conversation like this.
Mm.
And his projection was way different. I have
Mm.
to say, I listened to all of it. I liked him a little bit more. I
Hmm.
listened to JD Vance for 4 hours. I liked him less. Right. So
Oh,
I think, yeah, I find he kind of some radical stuff. But so I think that he's not an egomaniac. He was fighting for his life. He was going to jail for these trumped up, no pun intended, charges for 700 years.
mm.
Right. So
Mm.
he's fought
Nothing
for the
was
little guy.
trumped up. No, it's all
Yeah.
bullshit what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
He's a convicted felon. Nonetheless,
No, he's not.
the point you're making is
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Yeah.
If there, we've always hoped that there's two Trumps. There's the media Trump, which people like me do not like, and then there is a real Trump. And if the real Trump actually has some sort of cognitive, objective thinking, then maybe we can not be woefully impacted by trade policies. That
Mhm.
there's some hope here. Now, guess what, gentlemen? We're having so much fun here rumbling that we're now almost at 45 minutes.
Oh my
We've
gosh, where did the
lost
time go?
we've lost half of our bazillion listeners. They've moved on to Joe Rogan. So
Yeah.
may I finish with this? I'm going to put
Yes.
you all on the spot. Maybe I'll answer it first. I likely don't have you guys until the new year again. I think, and so maybe some predictions. Okay, some predictions. There's two of them. I'll give you some of mine. Pretty easy. I think Poilievre's going to win. Okay, now that's
Yeah.
too easy. That's too easy. I don't think Trudeau is going to be. I don't think Trudeau's going to be. I think he'll pull something out of the hat. I do not believe in the mountain theory entirely. Not
Mm.
because I'm a liberal, not
Mm.
because I voted. I just think there's something. He's going to have something. I hope he doesn't, but he will. I don't believe, contrary to Mark's opinions, likely that Trump is actually going to be passing any kind of positive policies in 2025 for Canada. I don't think there'll be anything for us. I don't think there'll anything that we can gain from or benefit from. So there's a couple things for you guys. You don't have to debate me, but I want to know, what do you think is going to happen in 2025?
Well, I agree with the Trump policies. They're not going to be positive for Canada. This is why Trudeau has to go. Like, um, but a smart guy, and I would think that Poilievre is. I know Poilievre. Poilievre campaign. There's a video of me campaigning with Poilievre and Ladysmith. If he's as smart as I think he's already reaching out down
Mhm.
below and
Mhm.
making some contacts. But no, there's not going to be policies that are favorable to Canada. No question about it. And you
Mhm.
know what? Here's another thing. They were talking about the Mexican border. The new border person down there has already shot a warning shot across the Canadian bow, saying you better look at your border. You're letting the terrorists in. They're not coming in through Canada to our country. So they're going to start dictating our policy too.
Mhm.
So I would say for my part on the Canada side, I think Poilievre is going to win. Shock. I definitely think that's going to happen. I disagree with you strongly, John, on Trudeau pulling something out of his hat. I
Oh,
don't think.
thank you.
I mean,
That's great.
I mean, he
I
might
don't want him
try
to.
he might try to pull something out of his hat, but it's gonna fall flat, just like everything else is done. So I don't think that will have any impact. And in terms of south of the border, look, I'll just say this, John. You said there are two Trumps, the media Trump, and then the other Trump.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I don't like any of them. Like, I don't like Trump. I just don't. Like, I look at a man. I see an egomaniac who cares much more about himself and his own image than he does anybody who he's ever tried to support or work with. This is me passing judgment, but that's how I feel. But I would have struggled to vote for the Democrats because to me, they look like a completely unhinged party that has just fallen
Wow.
away into identity and woke politics. That being what it is, I hope that we can do something that is constructive for Canada and for Canadians because Canadian businesses really need it. Like they really need governments to work together to support them because they, not government jobs, businesses, small,
Right.
medium businesses are the backbone of this country and they need to do well.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
That's a great end. I've had far too much fun.
Yeah, that's
Me
great.
as well.
This is extraordinary. So, gentlemen, thank you so much, and till we meet again.
All right.
Yes, Mark, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Yes, you as well.
John, thanks for the invite and the heavy weight of the co-host crown. I hope I did justice to it, and we'll certainly see you next time.
All right.